So from there, I want to talk about the downside to Oklahoma, which Grinch also acknowledged. Our depth chart has not been the same for one single day since I got here. That's just been the way that it is. And now we get to add to that Kennedy Brooks opting out in 2020. You still don't know what you're getting or not getting to that degree in Trajan Bridges, Ramondre Stevenson, and Ronnie Perkins. And again, Grinch, who does not give out a whole lot of praise, really was giving out praise for Ronnie Perkins, who is an ESPN freshman All-American. I think he's the next dude that we would all tap as perhaps the best chance to be a first-round draft selection on that defensive side of the ball. However, how much is that going to be contingent on how much he plays this year? And do you expect to see these guys play more than 4 or 5 games this season, Colin?
As things stand right now, the way that the NCAA has kind of been hesitant to address a lot of these issues, like there are still guys across the country waiting on transfer decisions and their waivers are not. And so suspensions for me in the NCAA are definitely issues that are just going to get overlooked because it's easy to just turn away that and say, well, we're going to uphold our decision. For that being said, I think Ronnie Perkins is definitely going to face some sort of suspension this year. It's probably going to be a good amount of the games of this modified season. And then as a result, while I would agree with you, Ronnie Perkins is this team's best opportunity to get a first-round draft selection. He's also, for me, a guy that's definitely going to be back following this year. I just don't know if he's going to have the film and the resume to put together enough of a standing that gets him into the first 32 picks. And that's not a knock at him at all. I still think it's incredibly ridiculous that he's suspended, but that's a whole other tangent. For me, it's just about opportunity, right? I mean, there are going to be guys in this limited season that will eventually separate themselves because they get to play 10 games. And for Perkins, if he plays 5, 6, I mean, it's just not enough, at least from a logical perspective. So for me, because of the way things stand right now and because of the way the NCAA is currently operating in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic and some of the decisions it has to make, I just feel like Ronnie Perkins is going to be back following the season, and then that's going to be the time where he really proves that he's a first-round NFL draft pick.
What he lacks is buzz, right? We all knew about Chase Young going into the 2019 season. You don't have that sort of buzz around Ronnie Perkins, so if he were to perhaps put together a 6-game season of 12 to 15 sacks, I don't know that it would get the same amount of attention as perhaps he would have last year or even the next year. But that said, we're talking about right now presently 2 Power 5 leagues that aren't going to be able to play football. And we even have ESPN draft analysts like Todd McShay asking for showcases for some of these players to go, citing guys like Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, and Joe Burrow, who all needed that year to show the NFL who they were and be number 1 overall draft picks. To the question of depth at running back, though, no Kennedy Brooks, Trey Sermon, grad transfers to Ohio State, Ramondre Stevenson is out with suspension. Marcus Major needs to be 1B or 1A. I don't expect much out of Seth McGowan, but that's because he's a true freshman. And then is TJ Pledger going to be the guy that everybody thought he was going to be when he got to this university in 2018? I mean, it's another guy that kind of parallels Buki, coming out of the same place, coming with the same reputation, and hasn't quite lived up to our expectations, though I think if he was a 3-star recruit like Kennedy Brooks, everybody would feel a little bit differently about him. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, number one, this pressure now falls on the shoulders of TJ Pledger. Like, this is an opportunity for him to definitely prove the ranking that he received as a recruit coming out of high school. And I'm confident in what he's going to be able to do this season. I think he's a guy, I kind of prefaced this before the year and obviously all the hectic things that came with it. He's a guy that could definitely solidify himself as a very viable kind of third down back option. But now, I mean, he's not going to be the third down back. He's first, second, and third. And then when you go from there, I think Marcus Major, all the praise that he received coming out of high school is going to be incredibly intriguing to add to the storyline that he puts together this year, because that's RB2 in my opinion. And the big thing there is the injury situation. I mean, an injury like he sustained at that specific position is not something to be overlooked. And as a result, I need to know, okay, I know he has the talent. I know he has the mindset. But does he have the physical capability to just go and carry the rock X number of times and be effective? Because at the end of the day, man, I mean, no Kennedy Brooks, no Ramondre Stevenson for a while. This is going to be a major task, especially when you're asking these running backs to kind of take some of the pressure off the shoulders of a first-year starting quarterback. That gets incredibly overlooked. But, I mean, these guys are going to have to help Spencer Rattler ease into things. And so T.J. Pledger, Marcus Major, and then Seth McGowan, from all accounts, I mean, McGowan has looked very good in some of the off-season workouts and camps. But, I mean, he's still got to adjust to college football. And so as a result, I'm looking at Pledger as RB1. I'm looking at Major as a guy who hopefully can be RB2 despite some of the things he's dealt with injury-wise. And then you go from there and you hope you get something out of Seth McGowan or anyone else who can play that running back position. Maybe we get to see Jeremiah Hall rush the ball. I would be down for that. But overall, man, the loss of Kennedy Brooks, obviously a major deal. But I don't blame him one bit for doing what's best, in his opinion, for his family. And as a result, man, these ball carriers are going to have to step up in his absence.
Yo, man, I'm here for the Mikey Henderson experience. If they want to throw Brian Darby back there, who played some running back in high school. But if they even wanted to go and get Shane Witter and throw him over there because he was able to do some Wildcat stuff coming out of North Carolina, I'm here for it. I think it's going to be Go ahead.
Hey, Braden Willis, man. Braden Willis did everything, and he was the water guy for Arlington Martin. Let me see B-Will get the ball a couple of times. Yep. I'd be down.
I am here for it. Or, to hell with it. Just run empty. Just run empty. You know what I mean? Like, let's do it. Let's put 2 tight ends out there. Let's go big at the numbers with Rambo and Weiss and just see what would make it do what it do, baby. All right. So I want to go from that to Kelvin Gilliam, who is expected to make his announcement on August 22nd as to where he is going to commit to play. And this is a guy that's been on Oklahoma's radar, it feels like, for like 2 years, and has been a dude that we felt like is an Oklahoma lean for some time. But how do you feel about it going into the final days?
Yeah, so anyone who's listening to this, make sure you guys stay tuned, because I am actually flying out tomorrow to Richmond to shoot this kid's commitment for CBS Sports HQ. You guys will be able to watch it live on CBS Sports HQ around 7:45 Eastern time. That's when he will be announcing. And as for where I feel things stand, just getting to know this kid, I really do like where Oklahoma stands for him. I think Penn State's a very real contender. I think the Nittany Lions have done a great job of recruiting him. And to be quite honest with you, man, I think that this is a guy who is just certainly deserving of all of this recognition. Like, recruiting aside, Kelvin Gilliam is one of the best young men that I have ever had the opportunity to meet and deal with on the recruiting trail. So I'm very excited to get out there. But as to what will happen once I get out there, I think Oklahoma is very much a player here. I would call them the leader, but Penn State is going to fight this thing out into the final minute. And then South Carolina is in that top 3. And who knows what the Gamecocks are able to pull out towards the very end. And so as a result, this is a race that's been fascinating to follow. I think it could go in Oklahoma's favor. I would put it a very high percentage chance. But at the end of the day, man, this guy is one of the best defensive ends in the nation for a reason, and he will get the attention as such until he finally makes this thing official.
Yeah, man, being able to add him to Ethan Downs and Clayton Smith and Isaiah Coe, that's tasty. It's tasty. And along with that, let's say that he does choose to commit to Oklahoma. Yo, man, there's this little thing called the Sooner Summit that is supposed to take place here in the present future. I know Caleb Williams is heading up this thing, but talking about some of the kids that we expect to join him on what we can, I think, qualify as an unofficial visit, because they're not, it's a dead period. But it would be interesting to see guys like Caleb Williams and or Tristan Lay and or commits like Mario Williams, just to throw some names against the wall, choose to join him. What's your read on this situation?
Yeah, this is fascinating to follow, obviously. I mean, for Caleb Williams, Mario Williams, these guys to put something like this together, something that I don't think has ever really been done before. I mean, you could probably check me on that, but this is something that feels like it's kind of a revolutionary moment in college football recruiting for major commitments in a class to host other guys that they want as targets and get them on campus and just show them around. I mean, this is something that's incredibly meaningful for OU football recruiting. And as a result, I think there's definitely going to be some major news that comes of it. I think, obviously, if you go to OUinsider.com, the VIP board is loaded with notes as to who we expect. You mentioned Tristan Lee is definitely one of them, and that's huge because, obviously, Tristan Lee is a guy who heavily pursued by Clemson, LSU, Penn State. The list goes on and on. You always felt like if Oklahoma had the chance to get him around the program, that could help the Sooners in their standing with a five-star lineman who, in all seriousness, is one of the best offensive tackles I've seen in person in evaluation periods. And for him to be not only around the program, but to be around his potential quarterback, some of his other potential teammates, that's something that could really boost the Sooners moving forward and could help them potentially land this guy's commitment. Some other guys, obviously they get floated around, like Camar Wheaton, the five-star running back, Savion Byrd, offensive tackle out of Duncanville. That's a guy who I actually talked to a couple people down in the old DFW region. And, that dude could seriously be considering Oklahoma now, whereas SMU kind of seemed the heavy lean. This Sooner Summit could really help the 2021 recruiting class take shape for Oklahoma. It's one that has to, if we're being honest with ourselves, because other programs right now have a ton of momentum on the recruiting trail. I think OU's hoping that this will provide the boost necessary to get back on track.
At this point, anything that gets Camar Wheaton back on the campus is going to make Oklahoma fans tremendously happy, especially with the news of Kennedy Brooks. But you take a look at their scholarship distribution chart, and you can see that it's barren, man. We're not used to seeing that at the running back position, and knowing how quickly these guys can go down, I have my suspicions about how deep they could be, and you need to be able to add quality there, especially in a year in which we don't expect Oklahoma to take more than one tailback. And to be able to add a guy like Savion Byrd and or Tristan Lee is not only going to help vault you into the top 10 of the recruiting rankings, but could actually give you an opportunity to shoot for number 5 there.